It's really built on what type of information are you getting back from your customers or from
Yeah.
your target audience, and then customizing a plan built specifically around that. Only caution I would throw in the wind, again, you don't have to solve everything. What are you hearing that's something that you can immediately come in and fix and make an immediate positive impact?
Hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome. It is again your favorite time of the week. It is my favorite time of the week. It is time for Leaders Talk Season 2. As usual, I am your intrepid host, Andrew Dupe, Chief of Communication here at Leaders Brands. And today I am very happy to have with me Ray Sheehan. Now, Ray is the founder of Old City Media. It's a North American media production and experimental marketing agency. He has a background in strategic planning, marketing, event management, and advertising, and has helped the company expand from one city in the United States to an international agency. Ray is recognized as a leader in the special events industry and an innovative thinker in the Philadelphia community and beyond. Ray, welcome. I'm very, very happy to have you here. So yeah, I mean that's a good overview of a little bit about who you are, but we've already met a couple of times, so I know there's a lot more to it. And of course, you are an author in Leadership DNA, which this is of course the series in which we're concentrating on our authors in that tome. So, sir, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on the pod. Looking forward to chatting with you and your audience. Yeah, my name's Ray Sheehan with Old City Media, and yes, we are a marketing agency here just north of Philadelphia, just south of New York. I actually started in the special event space, believe it or not. Our
Gotcha, yeah.
team, yeah, our team was out producing these world-class festivals. And I usually explain that so people can kind of understand. So if you live in a major city, if you've gone to a Major League Baseball game before, ultimately, the they have an off season or the team goes on the road. So what our agency used to do, we would go into a major league ballpark and produce a festival while the team was on the road or while the team was not in season. These were beer festivals. These were food festivals. A lot of very fun lifestyle driven events where people could come out and get intimate with tacos and beer and craft beer and you name it. They were just fantastic events. So that's what we did for 20 years. And then COVID landed on our lap and everything kind of changed. No bringing people together. I don't want to go back in time. I'm sure everyone is probably very happy. I'm not thinking about those days, but
yeah, kind of better left behind us. Farther back, the better.
100%. So obviously, like everyone, we kind of had to pivot. So being in the large social gathering business, we had to pivot. So leadership skills started to kind of take play there. And then what we started to do, we really started to help out the brands that would come to our events. And 5 years later, we continue to do events, but we're doing these events at retail and grocery. So that's a little bit of a high level overview.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, so that's the worst possible industry to be in at that time. So, you say that you had to go to leadership to be able to deal with something like that. And I mean, and whether it be those events or whether it be 2008 when there was a lot of very similar things that were going on, what's the type of leadership that you're talking about that you need to find when you have to actually take a really hard look and say, whether it's through no fault of my own or whatever, things aren't going to work anymore. I've got to find a way to change it. That's a brave thing to have to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have these sort of leadership skills. It's just kind of making them come to the forefront. So for me, it was acknowledging there's a problem, right? So
that's that's the first step for anything.
That's the first step. And I felt like when COVID first landed on our lap, there was a lot of uncertainty. So I immediately started to do a lot of research. What are we working with here? What's going on? And I need to be real and true to myself. It's like, this seems like this could be a major problem. No one had the crystal ball. I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was. But you at least have to acknowledge that there is a problem. You can't just kind of walk around with your kind of head in the sand. And that's with anything. Maybe your business isn't performing that well. Maybe there are some cultural issues within your company. So the first and foremost is being able to really identify the problem. Then I thought, good leadership qualities, being able to get into solution-based thinking. And to me, that's really, really critical, being able to identify the problem and then immediately, I don't want to say a lot of people like, woe is me, but for me, it's like, okay, there's a problem. I need to immediately identify the problem and get into solution-based thinking. And to me, that's very productive. That's a very efficient use of your time of figuring out, okay, how can I create a solution to this unfortunate situation? And for me, being in the special event space, I was working with a lot of brands, telecommunication, home improvement, energy, banking, and a lot of these brands had the same issues that I was going through. A lot of these brands could not have that human interaction, that human engagement. So my thought process was, well, let me take these brands and let me place these brands at the time, places that are deemed essential. So for me, I tapped into the leadership skills of being able to identify the problem, going into solution-based thinking, trying to stay even keel with my team morale as the world is coming to an end, so to speak. There's a part of you that just needs to kind of just show your team, we're going to get through this. We're going to figure this out. We're all going to work on this together, and we're going to be okay. We're going to come out of this all right.
Yeah, and that's identifying the problem. That's, I think, something that a lot of businesses have a hard time doing. I think that there's a lot of kickback that comes when you run into a bad situation that says, well, if I just get through it, I like the way I'm doing things. and they don't go into that as much.
No, you're exactly right. It's like, I think it's like Blockbuster could have bought like Netflix. Like, you can see certain things that are coming. And I feel like a lot of times business owners, not suggesting that they have egos, but they're probably very successful. They built their business up. They've made some really, really smart decisions. And then ultimately it's okay, the business is running and the business is humming along, but you have to have a little foresight and be able to kind of identify like, okay, it might not last this way forever. And let me challenge myself. Let me get the team empowered. Are there other things that we should be thinking about? And sometimes those are really tough conversations. Those are times where ultimately you might need to start thinking differently. There's other things out there like AI, right? There's a lot of things that are out there that just make people feel uncomfortable because they're so used to a certain way.
Same way, yeah.
But if you can kind of think outside the box, get your team empowered, and start looking at things differently, I think that's a way to be really, really successful.
Well, what I like about what you did is that you immediately looked into what you had been doing right in other areas. And that's fascinating because you had built the relationships. You had already had all of that constructed, and you were using them for one thing. So how did you begin to take the thought process of how am I going to use these connections for new things? Because that's maybe the block that some people would have in your situation. Well, how do I deploy this differently?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And for me, it was, okay, here are my problems. And then let me think about my clients' problems. And to me, that's really, I think a lot of times people are like, Ray, you do sales. And I'm like, yeah, I do sales, but really what I'm doing, I'm solving other people's problems is really what I'm doing. And people that they ask the right questions and they really kind of think about what are my clients' real challenges. And for me, I thought about, you have to look at things through like different lenses. And the lens of my clients were like, we can't go out and market our brand in a safe and socially responsible way based off of the pandemic. Like there are certain things that we can't do now, i.e. raise event or a home show or a boat show or an expo or all these different things that we've all done as professionals, networking events, a convention, stuff like that. So for me, it was like, okay, I know these brands, they still want to go out and have a conversation with their potential customer. So how do we do that? And then I thought about it from a retailer's perspective or from a grocer or big box retailer. I knew that these retailers, they're always looking for creative ways to drive additional revenue, right? Whether it's like, there's a lot of different things that are happening right now. Look at Amazon. A lot of our consumers are purchasing ways and doing things and consuming things a lot differently than we did before COVID or even 5 or 10 years ago. So for me, it was like, the brands, they want to go out and have a conversation with consumers Retailers, they're always looking for ways to monetize their property. Imagine if I became the conduit between the two. I can take the brand that I have all these relationships. I had these relationships with retailers in big box like Walmart. Imagine if I brought them together and I helped manage the process and made it extremely turnkey and seamless for both parties. And that's what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's amazing, and that's you recognizing just what was right there in front of you, kind of the whole time, and starting to wiggle into in a different way. I mean, in some ways, we did the same thing when we had to pivot a little bit in our business. We started using a lot of our connections and building out our marketing a little bit differently in that way, and starting to have new outreach. And yeah, it's like it's being able to just see what's right in front of you. What would you say then? To let's say somebody that says, well, Ray, I don't necessarily have those same connections in my business, and how do I plan ahead to start looking for ways in which I could build my business future proof in case the next thing happens down the line.
So the biggest thing would be really understanding your audience, really
Right.
understanding your customer, really understanding like what are their needs ultimately. What whoever whatever you have a product or a service, whatever it is, what do your clients or customers really want? And to me, that really boils down to just understanding your customers or your clients. And that can be done in a lot of different ways. That can be done just interacting with them through social. Maybe that's having them fill out some sort of a survey. Maybe that's additional customer support on your end. There's a lot of different ways to try to get a sample size of really trying to understand what does my target audience really want. And if you can identify that, well, now you're starting to get a roadmap of like, okay, I think this is what the marketplace needs, but this is what they're telling me. This is what my audience is telling me. This is what my customers are telling me. And I would start there. So now you start to get a sample size of like your inner workings, your most valued clients, your most valued customers. And now to your point, well, how do you start to grow that based off of like outside of that? Well, now at least you have a strategy. At least now you have a plan. At least now you have a roadmap based off of those key insights that you got from your core audience or your customers.
And that sounds like it should be so self-explanatory and easy because we really to think about it. It's like you need to just concentrate on your audience, your customers, the people that are actually buying your product, the people that are actually doing everything. Sometimes we lose real sight of that and just continue to concentrate on the process and continue to concentrate on how the organization and just how things are going. What are some of the best ways? I mean, you gave a few of them, like social media, a little bit of engagement. I mean, what are some of the best ways to kind of deploy that learning from your customer base?
Well, it really depends on what sort of insights that you've gotten from your customers or from your audience. But ultimately, whatever the needs, whatever they're looking for, ultimately, well, then now it's like, okay, we now need to build a plan and a strategy around it. And some of it just might not be possible, or some of it could be something that could be simple as your company's customer service is not good enough. Okay, great. So, okay, how do we fix that? How do we maybe it's hiring, maybe it's technology, maybe maybe you need to look at your website. Maybe the customer journey through your website isn't intuitive enough. So for me, it's like it could be just something as simple as like, hey, we need to solve this. I tell people all the time, you don't need to boil the whole ocean, but you just need to boil a cup at a time. And sometimes it could be just something as simple as we're getting feedback, and the one feedback we're getting is our customer service is falling short. Okay, let's solve that. Well, how do we do that? Okay, customer goes to our website or customer makes a phone call. What happens then? And then what I like to do is like I call it like a map of like, okay, let's follow that journey. Are there any loops? Are there any problems along that customer journey? So it would be tough for me to tell you exactly what to do because ultimately it's really built on what type of information are you getting back from your customers or from your target audience, and then customizing a plan built specifically around that. Only caution I would throw in the wind, again, you don't have to solve everything. What are you hearing? That's something that you can immediately come in and fix and make an immediate positive impact.
And that's a perfect answer because that's actually kind of the one I was expecting because I feel like a lot of people that listen say, well, is there a one size fits all solution? Is there something that will a magic bullet that I can come up with that can make that happen? But yeah, you have to be introspective. You have to understand your own model. Um, so Ray, kind of pivoting a little bit as we're kind of talking a lot about pivoting in the conversation. So, what prompted you to get the desire to start sharing this in writing and trying to get this in front of a lot more people?
Yeah, there was a couple things for me. I look at businesses like, how can I have conversations like this? Like
Right.
there
Yeah.
might be someone listening to this podcast that I might be able to help, or I could potentially inspire, or I might be able to share some insight. And to me, like I look at life is like, it's all right to take a withdrawal every now and then, but I try to make as many deposits in life as possible. And I feel like that's it's almost like the yin and the yang in the world. And I feel like the more deposits you make in life, it kind of comes back in return. So for me, it was all about sharing a story. It was all about inspiring. It was all about helping. And I will be honest with you, like selfishly, I'm always looking to grow. I'm always looking to build my business. So for me, this is just another arrow in the quiver of like, okay, I do my own marketing. And whether it's through social, whether it's through email marketing, whether it's through PR, whether it's through events, whether it's through writing a book, whether it's through all these different things, for me, it's all really, really important. To share a positive story, but maybe I can help somebody along the way. And if I'm helping somebody along the way, that's building my business. So for me, there was a lot of different things that kind of went into that. It was a personal goal of mine.
Yeah.
I like goals. I like fighting for stuff. It's kind of the sales part of me that's in my DNA. So it was just something that I wanted to do. And I'm so happy I did it. It was like going through that journey. It was a little challenging. Writing's not my strong suit. So it challenged me to do some things that it got me a little out of my comfort zone. But the process from start to finish was amazing. I'm so glad I did it.
Well, that's fantastic. We're glad you did too, because yeah, that's what we're here talking. But yeah, I mean, and that's why we're here talking, though. That's something that I think that when we're talking about what are ways in which you can get out there, a book is one of them. And we wouldn't be here on this podcast if we hadn't met through a book. There will be referrals that I'll make to you for you to others that I've had contact with. This starts a ball rolling down the hill that just continues to build momentum every single time you do it. So, yeah, I mean, have you already kind of thought of ways in which this is going to be able to immediately help you and for the future?
You know, so here's what I would say. To me, competition is fierce, and there's
Yeah.
probably a lot of people out there that that are in my space. They're in experiential marketing. There are marketing agencies. There's a gazillion marketing agents out there, and there's probably a lot of them that are even better than me, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, how do you set yourself apart? What is
Yeah.
your real point of difference? Can you prove to people that you really are truly a thought leader? Do you
Yeah.
look at things differently? Do you ask the right questions? So for me, I looked at this book as just another way of building confidence with my audience, of showing
Yeah.
them that, hey, I'm willing to try things. It's not just like, hey, you should do this. You should try this. You should try it. It's me. It's like, no, I'm actually doing these things. So I can sit down with you and have a real conversation and a real kind of some real feedback and data. Like, hey, this is how it's helped my business. So no, I haven't really given it a ton of thought other than I think this was a great idea. I think this
Mhm.
is a great way to go out and continue to promote our brand, my name selfishly. I think this is a way to kind of create a little more of a point of difference and make me look as a thought leader within my space. And I feel like a lot of people listening to this podcast are in a different vertical, in a different space. And by writing a book, it gets all your thoughts together, gets everything down in a clear and concise manner. But now you're probably just looked a little differently in your professional field. And I think that's a really good thing, especially in the world we live in today. It's very crowded. Competition's tough. The internet, there's so much information. There's so much that we can access. Having a book and being an author, I think is really important and can really help you in a professional way.
Yeah, perfect answer. And that's exactly what a lot of our audience was wanting to hear. Because, a lot of them are thinking about it. Some of them have already done it. Some of them are thinking about it. Many of them, this is the first step that they have before they make that move. So yeah, it's being able to differentiate yourself because exactly crowded room, the guy who's going to win, the guy with a business card or the guy with a book. I mean, it's yeah.
And I look at life and I look at, how can I get smarter? And to me, it's like there's a lot of people out there. I'm gonna sell, all these things, and it's like, okay, help me understand what your problems are. Kind of going back to my original point of getting into solution-based thinking, but who can really provide insights? Who can really enlighten me? Who can make me just a smarter, whatever, for me, a smarter marketer, right? So for me, I think the book also takes a lot of those insights, a lot of that experience, a lot of that knowledge, and now you're sharing that. And to me, value comes in a lot of different currencies. And to me, educating people and helping people and inspiring people, I think it goes a long way where people are making a decision of like, okay, should I work with Ray or should I work with Ray's competition? I'd like to think that if I'm providing all this, call it free insight and education, I'd like to think that they're going to probably look at you a little differently than the competitor. I don't know. That remains to be seen. That chapter hasn't been written yet.
Yeah, well, and when it is, we'll have you back on. So Ray, as we kind of wind down things here a little bit, we've talked about a lot of things and a little different topics. So you have something to bring it together that we haven't touched on, like a golden nugget, just something that you can leave with our audience that they could find useful, universally useful, that you found useful.
I manage my business. There's this, it's called Setting the Table. It's by Danny Meyer. It's like the transferring power of hospitality. And to me, I try to treat like my customers, my audience, your audience here. If anyone wants to contact me, I'd be happy to have a conversation with them pro bono, just to help them. I try to treat my business from my background in hospitality. And it's like, I like when I'm having a conversation with somebody or I'm working with someone, I want to give them this white glove, world-class experience. And I know that's probably overused. Like, oh, it's a partnership. And for me, I think it's really important. And I think my background in hospitality, producing events, working in hospitality has given me this experience of just how people should be treated, as if I were inviting you into my home and I was having you over for a meal or having you over for a cocktail. And I think all that experience that I've had in hospitality has really helped me. So I would tell, not everyone's worked in hospitality, not everyone's been in the restaurant business, but everyone's been in a restaurant, especially a good one. And when you're there, there's just something you can't describe. It's like the atmosphere, the vibe, the conversation, the music, everything is just perfect. And for me, I take a lot of hospitality and I apply that to like every day, just sitting down, breaking bread, and having like a really organic conversation with people. And to me, I think people appreciate it. I love it. I love that sort of like organic conversation. So hospitality, we look at it as just like a way to go out and eat, but I look at hospitality as something way more special of being able to really, truly connect with people.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, Ray, speaking of connecting, how can our audience find out more about you?
Yeah, they can read the book, but yes, we'd happy to talk to anyone out there that is on the fence, thinking about writing a book. I think you should absolutely go for it. But if you wanted to hear some more information about my experience, my journey, or if you're a business owner figuring out, hey, how could I tap into experiential marketing? I'd love to have a conversation with you. Go to oldcitymedia.com. Again, that's oldcitymedia.com, or email me, ray@oldcitymedia.com. I'd be happy to answer all your questions and provide some insights.
Fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, all those links are available in the down below. So go ahead and click those. Ray, it was fun. I loved having you. We will meet again, sir, and have the second half of this conversation a little later, so we can see exactly how everything has gone. I'm going to love having you back in that time.
I look forward to that. Thank you for having me again.
Fantastic. Have a great one, Ray.